Hi, welcome to Weekend Review, where we look at some of the news making headlines and catch up on some of the stories we'll have coming for you this weekend. I'm joined today again by our esteemed colleague Nolan Clay. From sports, we've got Darnell Mayberry and my old friend Don Mecoy from business. I'm Phil O'Connor, the Live Enterprise Director. A lot of news again this week. I say it every week, but hey, that's the business we're in. So Nolan, let's start off. Sex scandals continue to plague the State House a little bit. What's the latest on the Representative Kirby case?
Well, a special committee, which has been looking into sexual harassment accusations in January, finally came out with their report and said that Representative Kirby should be expelled, that he can't be carrying on with a legislative assistant, can't be asking for and accepting nude photos, even though he says that she at first sent him unsolicited. He accepted them. And then at some point he asked for him, and he took her to a strip club, and can't be doing that. Unprofessional, and they said he should be expelled.
So what's the next step? Does he have recourse here? Is he going to fight that?
It's up in the air. There's some indication that he's going to fight it. There's some suggestion that he might resign or be talked into resigning. We'll just have to see.
Not the way you want to start off the session, for sure. We also have some news in the sheriff's office. Big changes ahead.
Well, the sheriff has had this cloud over his head for a while over basically unpaid medical bills. County was sued.
For people in the jail, not his medical bills. But
yes, of course.
Yeah.
And the county was sued. There's a $3.3 million judgment that's on appeal. An audit looked into it and other issues. He got elected, even though he's a Democrat, despite that. But as it got closer and closer to a grand jury looking into it, which would have been possibly later this month, he decided to retire rather than risk a lengthy and expensive fight. He might have been able to keep his job. There might not have been an ouster recommendation, but that's kind of the way it was looking, and he would have faced an expensive fight to keep his job, and chose to retire and go on. There's two Republicans, and word is a third Republican already gearing up to run in a special election for his.
One of those being Mike Christian, who lost in the November general election.
Yes, former state representative Mike Christian. He was outspent. He has some good name recognition, though, and he says he doesn't have any money left, but he has a good shot. The candidate in 2012, Republican named Darryl Sorrells, is running too, and word is that the undersheriff, P.D. Taylor, who also is a Republican, is going to run.
And Sheriff Whetsel's held that position for a couple decades now.
20 years.
20 years. And then in his resignation letter,
retirement letter.
I'm sorry, his retirement letter, he made it very clear that what his thinking is that there is a desperate need for a new jail facility.
And that's long been said. And the jail has problems. It's always had problems. It's bad design, many say, and there's mold, and it's overcrowded, and there's some efforts to reduce the overcrowding, some ways that have been suggested and implemented that's going to reduce the overcrowding, but there's still a lot of sentiment in law enforcement that, hey, the thing we're going to have to do is pay for a new jail. Now, Christian says he has a plan to do it without raising tax dollars. We'll just have to see.
And there's a big public conversation going on right now. Before we spend the tens of millions of dollars on the possibility of needing a new jail, are there other things that we could do to possibly reduce the inmate population, drive down the need for such a costly new endeavor?
I'm thinking that there would, if all these changes are put into place, that the current jail could hold the population. At some point, we're going to need a new jail. That's just it's going to get too old.
It's been plagued from the start.
It's been plagued from the start. It's just a matter of, you can't keep putting money into it, and it's at some point, whether that's next year or 10 years from now, that's the question.
Okay. Well, we don't want to say that let's not talk about falling apart as a transition, but What's going on with the Thunder?
They're falling apart.
Are they? Okay, that's what I was wondering. What's happening?
Well,
We kind of hit a rough patch
Yeah,
here.
well, we knew at the start of the season when we looked at the schedule that January was going to be a tough month. They had a ton of road games in the month of January, and they went 7-8 in the 15 games in that month because most of them were on the road. You're in that dog day stretch of the season where everyone's tired, everyone's kind of banged up, so they really struggled to stay or above water in January. And then now they're just playing some really good teams. I mean, you played at Cleveland, you played at San Antonio. They came back and played at Chicago the other night at home. At home against Chicago the other night and got their heads kicked in. No one really saw that coming, but they're struggling right now offensively. And as Canner made the unfortunate decision to slam his arm against a chair, broke his forearm. So he's going to be out at least a month, probably 2. So the offense is struggling without him. And defensively, they're also struggling. They gave up about 128 points to Chicago at home, so that's not good. They're just having all kind of issues right now.
And we've got, we were talking a little bit earlier, we've got KD is coming to town eventually, right? And that's still a huge game. People are already getting psyched for it. What is the anticipation? I mean, are we still hoping for the playoffs? Is that still a reality, or is it, do we?
They're firmly in the 7th seed right now. They're battling with Memphis for that 6th and 7th spot. It's going to be tough for them to get higher than 6. They might still be able to get the 6th seed, which you would want because then you won't have to face San Antonio if you're the 7th seed because San Antonio is the 2 seed. So you'd rather hope for that 6th seed so you can play the 3rd seed. And have a better chance at advancing into the 2nd round. But if they get that 7th seed, it's going to be awfully tough. But they're going to make the playoffs. Russell Westbrook is still having an incredible season. He still has Steven Adams and Victor Oladipo as his 2nd and 3rd best players, respectively. So they're going to be in good shape. The schedule will soften up a little bit more as we go deeper into February and early March. So I think they're going to be fine. I don't think that it's going to be an issue of whether or not they make the playoffs. They're going to make the playoffs.
Don, I always like to turn to you in these moments because you're a season ticket holder. You're a fan. What are you thinking about the Thunder these days?
Well, I think going into the season, we really didn't know because the team was so different than we'd ever had before. We really didn't know what they were going to do. And they're kind of meeting my expectations that I thought they would be a playoff team. They're not among the league's elite. They're not going to win a championship. But it's incredibly entertaining as a season ticket holder to go there every night and watch Russell Westbrook play.
So you see no drop-off in fan enthusiasm, even though we may not be talking world championships so much anymore.
I didn't say that. I do see some drop-off in fan enthusiasm. I see more empty seats. I see more people leaving early. Yeah, I do see some of that. But that's to be expected. The NBA's now been here, a decade, and that initial enthusiasm is going to wane, and particularly when you lose a superstar like we did, that's going to have an impact too.
I also think, Don, that the attitude has sort of shifted from we're a championship contender to now it's let's hope Russell Westbrook gets the triple-double and let's root for him to not only average a triple-double this season, first time since 61-62 when Oscar Robertson did it, but also him to win the MVP award. So right. I think that's really what fans are now hoping for the most.
Easy to fill the arena when you're winning. Not so easy sometimes when things aren't going so well. News on the sales tax front, and this will be a big blow to folks who do their shopping online, I'm sure. So what do we hear this week?
Well, finally, Amazon and the state came to an agreement that Amazon.com would collect and pay sales tax on items that are bought by people who live in the state of Oklahoma. Previously, that just hasn't been the case. And particularly this last Christmas season, this is big news for retailers and for cities in Oklahoma because last Christmas we really saw an impact on online sales on our local retailers. Not so much the mom and pop shops who told us they had a pretty good season, but in the big box discount stores at places, Macy's and Dillard's and Target, those kinds of places. We're seeing some declines because so many people are shopping online.
Because it's about a 10% savings,
right?
I mean, right off the bat,
right off the bat,
8.75% sales tax.
Right, and if you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, you don't pay shipping. So the price you see, that's the full price you pay. And we talked to a guy who runs a vacuum cleaner shop yesterday, and he was celebrating because, you know, he sees he has to cut his prices to try and match Amazon, which, you know, we make a big deal about sales tax free weekend here in Oklahoma, and it's sales tax free all the time on Amazon. So,
Is there any indication of how much money the state loses by not having that tax collected?
There's estimates, you know, that it's tens of millions of dollars. I saw one estimate that this might, just to having Amazon collect these sales taxes, might, you know, bring $50 million into the state, which, you know, a big chunk of that's going to go to the state. You know, about half of it's going to go to the cities and municipalities. The way our taxes are structured here, cities in Oklahoma really count on the sales tax. So this is a big deal for them. I mean, you know, Amazon came out with their earnings yesterday, and they reported that in the fourth quarter, the last 3 months of 2016, they sold $43 billion worth of merchandise.
And this at a time when municipalities in Oklahoma are basically going through the couch cushions looking for cash.
Right, and they just don't have a lot of other places to look besides sales tax, so they need that sales tax to come into the state. It's a big deal for them.
Great, and we'll have that story in the weekend paper. What else do we have coming up?
Well, we're going to talk to the first woman to lead the Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce in its 120-year history. Rhonda Hooper, she's the CEO of Jordan Advertising. She's been around town a long time. She's well known. She's well respected. We're just talking to her about what the chamber has accomplished in past years and what she sees going forward.
Great. Okay, sounds really interesting. That's the kind of stories you can read on News OK, that you can read every day in the Oklahoman. Pick up a copy, check us out online. I think you'll enjoy what you find there. Thanks for joining me again this week, you guys. We'll see you again next week. Thanks a lot.